Hey guys, Iggy here. If you're watching this video, it's probably because you received an email regarding your status as assessor with NAVRA and upcoming plans that we've got for a Zoom meeting sometime hopefully in mid-September. First of all, let me thank Stefan Martel for asking me to be his director of operations. It's been crazy after he took over from Dan Zing with NAVRA. As the chair, it's been crazy with the COVID, of course. For me, it's, as you may know, I've had some issues health-wise and with a death in the family, which has kept me away from vehicle extrication for the last couple of years. But I'm sending out this video in preparation for this video call that we'd like to do, that we need to do. Also like to thank Dan Zing for the opportunity to work with NAVRA going back to 2008 when he first started it, and then asking me to be his assessors coordinator in 2012, and did that for a few years. And just want to make sure that we talk about the organization, and I know everybody here has got a passion for it. So we want to talk about how we're going to make this organization better. And I think to do that, we got to kind of review things and see where we started from as these type of organizations and where we are now, and see where the changes need to come. The main thing that Stefan wanted me to do was coordinate the assessors to update and form and update the a current list of assessors, regionally, nationally, and WRO qualified assessors, and we have that now. Update that list, as well as put together a training seminar or workshop for the assessors. And that, with everything going on with COVID right now, it looks like it might have to wait until we get an actual regional, or until we can get assessors together to start sending to different departments training, so we can maybe put this on the NAVRA website to kind of display our philosophy with NAVRA and where we should be going. So the organizational goals, when we talked at our first meeting, the NAVRA meeting, which was in late 19, early 20, before COVID, when we had our first reorganizational meeting for NAVRA, the marketing expert marketing expert that Stefan asked to attend the meeting and is going to help us with getting our name out there, asked us a question, and the room was full of board members, as well as a few assessors, and the question came up: what is the organization going to be known as? To my surprise, it was, you could have heard a pin drop. There was not a word. And as I looked around the room, I think because there's so many new people to this organization on the board, they weren't really aware that the competition aspect for us is really secondary to the education and training. At least that's the way it's always been for these organizations like Turk and like NAVRA, is that the training and education should always be first. Competition is how we get people in to join our organization. So I think if we talk a little bit about the past of these competitions, or understand where maybe we are going or where we've been. So in 1984, Fire Chief Alan Duquois of the Office of Fire Marshal in Ontario, Canada, originated the concept of International Automobile Extrication Challenge and Learning Symposium. A number of transportation accidents was increasing both in Canada and the United States, resulting in higher number of deaths and serious injuries. We're talking about 1986 here. This prompted Chief Duquois to provide a medium where an international forum of experts can come together and exchange information, ideas, and life-saving techniques. This medium would provide a wealth of information to all who attended. Everyone who participated would teach, learn, share, and develop lasting friendships with their peers from around the world. The International Association of Fire Chiefs sanctioned the Transportation Emergency Rescue Committee, Turk, in 1986. This provided a centralized coordinating body to promote furtherance of extrication education. That is how we got started. In 1986, Turk International was formed and funded by the AAFC, International Association of Fire Chiefs, which currently has 12,000 members. But in 1986, the IAFC formed Turk and said, listen, go out and find out, how do we improve these extrication techniques and theories so that we can share them with one another. And that's when Turk went out and did a research, and I think at the time in 1986 it was about 48-minute average, 48-minute on scene time. And that's when we started learning about, for most of us, maybe some other people were aware of it, but in the fire service, we started learning about the golden hour and the need for transport and as soon as possible into an OR or trauma center. We learned about the three, we analyzed it and said there's really three aspects to an extrication: a response time, on-scene time, and transport time. And the area that we could really affect in Turk in the fire service was the on-scene time, obviously. So that's how we got these competitions going. I'm assuming they started these things because as firefighters, the best way to get us to buy in is to have us compete. So in 1991, our fire department, Coral Gables Fire Department, started competing. And I have to mention Coral Gables because for the next 31 years, all of my experiences were through Coral Gables Fire Department, Turk, WRO, and eventually NAVRA. So in 1992, the first ever, we start competing in 1991. In 1992, the first ever World Extrication Challenge was held in Morton-in-the-Marsh in England using live patients. First competition ever to use live patients. So the British were ahead of their time in thinking, well, we need to put like trauma nurses in that car, crush the car down, and then put the patient in rather than put the mannequin in and crush it with the mannequin in. So a lot of neat and interesting changes there. And as you can see, that's where we ended up using anyways, is the live patients to get a better feedback of the medical care for these patients. So I'm skipping along because pretty much the competitions from when we joined in 1991 up into the late 90s was two scenarios: a limited where you can use air and electrical powered tools or manually applied tools, and an unlimited where you could use all those tools and heavy hydraulics. Both 20-minute scenarios, the way they still are today, both had conscious, stable patients. So they had back pain, leg pain, neck pain, but consciously they were aware enough to be able to talk to us so we didn't have to deem them a rapid extrication victim. So the competitions went out. There was, Turk was having regionals, the Transportation Emergency Rescue Committee, which was the first of its kind worldwide, had these competitions and was doing a good job of sharing the knowledge from one region in the United States to others and around the world, because a lot of teams from around the world would come to join the Turk international competitions to be involved with them. So in 1999, the WRO formed its first ever World Extrication Challenge, which was held in Australia, using WRO guidelines. In the year 2000, CGFD competed and placed in the second overall WRO World Extrication Challenge in Gullin, Scotland, which featured the first ever rapid extrication scenario, which was, again, pretty neat because we really were used to that limited and unlimited scenario. Then they threw in that rapid. So 10 minutes, at about the 3 or 4 minute mark, they would tell the IC the patient's stopped breathing, and now has lost consciousness, I should say, and now it becomes a rapid extrication, and you have a total of 10 minutes to get them out before time is called. So in 2001, we won first place in Johannesburg, South Africa, which also featured the limited manpower scenario, where teams were allowed to use only 3 members during the event. So an IC and 2 of the guys on the team hand stabilize the car, do the best you can with 3 guys. Interesting concept. In 2000, actually, WRO, I've always been a big supporter of the WRO. They were ahead of their time in many ways, but there's some things that I'm going to get to and talk about that I think that we need to reevaluate for us, for NAVRA as an organization. So if I'm complimenting the WRO a lot here, it's because they deserve it. They were really ahead of their time. But as I said, there's things we need to look at moving forward. So in 2002, the IAFC stopped funding Turk. Done. Turk was dissolved. So Turk USA and Turk Canada were formed. And that same year, in 2002, UKRO, United Kingdom Rescue Organization was formed. That's important because the WRO was basically formed by the UKRO, so it stands to make sense that most of its board members were from the UKRO, so their philosophy, what was first introduced as far as criteria and scoring. So then you have Turk USA, maintained a peripheral contact during that time. And I know I was on the board with Turk in 2002 when we were just being dissolved, and the organization leaders at the time didn't want to just come out and say, hey, we're having problems restructuring. So we kind of just played along for a while and followed their lead as much as we could with the WRO. But really, the connection between WRO and Turk started falling apart. And a lot of that had to do, just speaking frankly, and I am currently a Turk member as well as a NAVRA member. And the truth is there, it was a big change in criteria for medical, especially with regards to medical criteria, between what Turk and what they were doing for competitions and what WRO was doing and what they were preaching. The medical criteria was significantly different. So it went from just the medic taking care of not hurting the patient to actually, in the past, we'd always done an ABC, primary and secondary assessment on the patient, protect them against any dangers inside the car, provide feedback to the incident command, and assist technical rescuers with things that are happening inside the car, and of course, to take and maintain C-spine. That was really the emphasis of the original competition since we got into in '91. That's as far as the medical got. It didn't get to where we are now. That seems to, in my opinion, and the opinion of many of the assessors, and a lot of the team captains I've spoken to, it seems like we're transitioning in the WRO at least to a lot more medically based competition, like more of an EMS competition, and that's where I'm concerned here. But I'll get back to that. We'll get to that during our Zoom meeting. These are just my thoughts, guys. Sorry, I hope I'm not ruffling any feathers here. So we used to be criticized actually as big believers in WRO with Coral Gables, through Coral Gables and the WRO's connection. We were viewed as too involved with the medical aspect, and that's because in the state of Florida, most of our fire departments have paramedics as firefighters, so we don't do the extrication and hand off to rescue. We're doing both. So I think that we were versed in the medical aspect a little bit more than most regions for these types of competitions, and I think it showed when you see teams like Seminole, Palm Beach County Fire Rescue, see the things they've accomplished, see, of course, Coral Gables, Palm Harbor, other teams in the state of Florida that have always been very competitive at these things, and it's because of the application of not just the incident command technical, but the medical portion too. So in 2007, at the WRO World Extrication Challenge in Barcelona, the first ever complex scenario is introduced. By far the best scenario, according to all the members that year, all the competing teams, they thought it was the best scenario they'd ever done. And to this day, it's still being used by the WRO at their competition. I think NAVRA needs to incorporate that into their scenarios as well, into their competitions and events. So in 2008, NAVRA was formed, and the bridge between USA and WRO was reestablished. So now we're talking to WRO again, trying to find out, what is the best way to run these competitions and what is truly the best practice, and who determines that. So in 2008 through 2012, the economic depression hits, not just the state of Florida, the whole country. So vehicle rescue competitions, vehicle extrication competitions kind of went by the wayside. They picked up again in 2012, and that 4 years really hurt us. But in 2012, vehicle rescue, the first extrication in 5 years was held by BSO. So we went 5 years here, just in the state of Florida, with no vehicle extrication competition, no regional, national, of any kind, for 5 years. In 2013, the first ever WRO World Extrication Challenge was held in the U.S. in Clearwater. And it was actually a great event. It was the first one I had ever been a part of where teams were taking the equipment off the actual truck to perform the scenarios. But great competition. First year the Black Hearts competed at a World, and that's important because to date the Black Hearts are the only team from the United States that have been to every World competition since 2013. They are the team that's been doing this the longest, the Black Hearts. And I recently had a meeting with team captains asking them for feedback. And here's the feedback that I got from the teams. Assessing inconsistencies. NAVRA currently has 9 WRO qualified assessors plus an additional 8 nationally, an additional 3 regional qualified assessors, and 7 assessors that are current shadow assessors at the national level, waiting for regional or national certification. So we don't have a great big list, and we really want some of these senior assessors teaching these younger assessors so that the senior assessors can kind of, not have to be at all of these competitions that we hope to be having here in the future. Another concern was, of course, the unclear criteria and scoring sheets. I know that it's difficult when you're trying to compete with the World Rescue Organization caliber teams, and you're also kind of changing your criteria around to help the teams from the US that haven't competed at the World. But I think we need to have our own criteria and scoring sheets for NAVRA. That's my opinion. We'll speak about that at the meeting. Tool list inconsistencies came up. The fact that you can't use air chisels in some of these competitions, the confusion over what is considered a unlimited tool or unlimited hydraulic tool, or what's a limited hydraulic tool. Scenarios used was brought up. The used and degree of scenarios used and degree of difficulty. Host and departments should provide sufficient number of cards and props to assure consistency, i.e. limited versus unlimited type vehicles. You can't have a competition where you've been using lightweight cars in the limited scenario and all of a sudden stick the last 2 teams of the competition with a Cadillac or an SUV. It's just not consistent. So we'll talk to organizations about that. That comes from you guys. That kind of feedback comes from you guys because it came from the ICs as well, the types of cars used in different scenarios. NAVRA will have scenarios booked with at least 15 to 20 different scenarios for each competition with the following info provided: vehicle placement, entrapment, body part versus the component of the vehicle, props to be used and marked, and doors, handles clearly disabled or blocked, and all vehicle mechanisms should be disabled. That's the way every car should be set up. So this brings me to the experience. I'm almost at the 20-minute mark, so I need to wrap this up. I'm sorry it's run so late. So in 2019, after talking to teams, after seeing what I saw as an assessor and speaking to teams, not just the ICs, the teams themselves, I saw a very competitive, very well-run competition. I did, however, see some changes that I'm not used to. I saw very small holes being created. I saw divided command where there was a technical command or an IC command, not just the regular incident commander. And by small holes, getting back to that point, I mean, I really felt like I was watching rapid scenarios for most of that competition. I mean, it seems like teams were just trying to get the patient out as fast as possible and not making holes that were there to be made so that they can gain access to the victim a little bit easier for them to remove the patient. And inconsistencies in judging based on the criteria used. That was an issue at this national. It came up. I saw it in some of the pits, and I think we're going to correct that. It has to do with assessors getting familiar with the criteria, but NAVRA establishing and putting in place a criteria that will be our criteria for here on out. We need to put the focus back into education and the reality. Here's my thoughts. We need to focus on NAVRA, our regionals and nationals, while bringing attention to the WRO regarding U.S. concerns such as criteria, tool lists. Why are there no air chisels allowed at the WRO? Glass management and judging inconsistencies. This is all WRO issues as well. We need to establish our own criteria, score sheets, and tool lists to be used at all NAVRA sanctioned events. Develop more experienced assessors, which is what Steph has got me working on now, and guide host agencies on how to host these competitions and learning symposiums. In general, we should be an educational organization which uses these events to display the variety of tools, techniques, and theories used locally, nationally, and internationally. Please review the assessor's qualification sheets that's attached on this email and email it back to me with any changes to your contact information or qualifications. I will be speaking to senior assessors in regards to setting up a Zoom meeting with all of those who reply, which I hope to have sometime in mid-September. This meeting will be open to assessors and shadow assessors. That's it, 20 minutes. I hope you guys will take the time to review this, think about it, and send me your suggestions along with your email and updated information. Take care, guys. Stay safe.